Ideology isn't real. Part 1. Circular definitions. Ideology. A set of principles, especially one on which a political system, party, or organization is based. Principle. A basic idea or rule that explains or controls how something happens or works. Rule. An accepted principle or instruction that states the way things are or should be done, and tells you what you are allowed and not allowed to do. In most argumentative and logical circles, it is widely believed that circular logic is not something to base your belief on.
Why is circular logic bad?
Because it makes a circle.
Why is making a circle bad?
Because then you're using circular logic.
Why is circular logic bad?
A common example of circular logic is employers asking their new employees to have experience. This logic breaks down whenever you look at how experience is acquired.
Actually, that's not circular logic. That's a catch-22.
Shut up! If every job required experience in its pertinent field of work, we would be out of employees in a single generation. Employers wouldn't hire anyone because nobody could acquire the necessary skills to get their new job. The idea of circular logic and catch-22s are essentially the same, the difference being that a catch-22 is a paradox, while circular logic is a logical fallacy. Now, I will explain what a catch-22 is for those people that haven't read the book, but say that they have. Honestly, there's a miniseries on Hulu, and you'll have a pretty good grasp of it if you just go watch that. Unless you're, like, stupid, or like a child. Stupid little man-child, or perhaps the epistemological implications of the mere existence of such a concept as a catch-22 is proof of how unreliable humans are insofar as understanding anything. I am a meat sack. Catch-22. A problematic situation for which the only solution is denied by a circumstance inherent in the problem or by a rule. The best example is the one provided by the author of Catch-22, Joseph Heller. Skip to this time and go watch the series, because I know you're not going to read the book, if you would like to come to your own understanding of what a Catch-22 is. If not, I'm showing a clip in a second anyways. One of our main characters, Yo-Yo, is drafted into World War II. He has the bright idea of being a bomber because they require the most training. He hopes that his training will be over before the war finishes. He was very wrong. Once he got up in the air and started dropping bombs, his friends started dying all around him. He realized he needed to get the fuck out of there. So he could keep fucking his commander's wife. Yeah, Chad shit. So he went to the doctor to explain that he isn't well. He's having panic attacks. He's talking very openly about the pointlessness of war. He's essentially radicalizing himself and his friends by expressing what he's feeling. So, he tries to leverage this in an attempt to be sent home, because he's crazy. But it isn't so simple. Watch this clip a few times.
You can ground me if I'm crazy, right?
Oh, sure, I have to. I have to ground anyone who's crazy.
Then ground me, I'm crazy.
You're not crazy.
But I am. Ask anyone, they'll tell you how crazy I am.
Yeah, but they're crazy.
Then why don't you ground them?
Why don't they ask me to ground them?
Because they're crazy, that's why.
Of course they're crazy. I just told you they're crazy, didn't I? And you can't have crazy people decide whether you're crazy or not.
Is Orr crazy?
Oh, he sure is.
Can you ground him?
I sure can, but first he has to ask me to.
Then why doesn't he ask you?
Because he's crazy. He'd have to be crazy to want to keep flying combat missions. Sure, I can ground Orr, but first he has to ask me to.
And that's all he has to do to be grounded?
That's it. Just let him ask.
And then you can ground him?
No, then I can't ground him.
Why not?
Catch-22. Anyone who wants to get out of combat duty isn't really crazy. Catch-22 specifies that a concern for one's own safety in the face of danger, real and immediate, is the process of a rational mind.
What?
Orr's crazy, and therefore he can get out of flying combat missions. All he has to do is ask. But as soon as he asks, he's no longer crazy, and so he has to fly more missions.
What?
Orr would be crazy to want to fly more missions, and sane if he didn't. But if he's sane, then he has to fly them. If he flies them, then he's crazy, and so he doesn't have to. But if he doesn't want to, then he's sane, and so he has to.
That's some catch, that catch-22.
It's the best there is.
A catch-22 is a problem whose solution is made impossible by the problem itself. Remember those definitions from the beginning? Did you notice something weird about them because you're such a special and smart little boy? I'm sure you did. Look at you. Basic comprehension. I couldn't be prouder. I will reiterate the definitions of principle and rule in order to calcify my concept that ideology isn't real. The definition of principle, again, a basic idea or rule that explains or controls how something happens or works. The definition of rule, again, an accepted principle or instruction that states the way things are or should be done and tells you what you are allowed and not allowed to do. Do you see the issue? I mean, you probably see the issue. You're such a special and smart little boy. But do you understand the implications of said issue?
But Mondo, they're synonyms. Of course their definitions will be circular.
They are not synonyms. This is extremely important for you to understand. When I say rule or principle, two different ideas hit your brain. If you're the kind of person that does things on principle, then you at least vaguely grasp the dichotomy between these two concepts. Sure, you could do things as a rule, but you don't because doing things on principle conjures a much more powerful idea in your mind. Doing something as a rule is doing something because you have to, or feel like you have to. For convenience, efficiency, abiding by the laws of thermodynamics, whatever. The thing you're doing as a rule is something you're doing out of perceived or real necessity. Doing something on principle is doing that thing because you hold some conviction that this thing is just and right. And if you can convince other people to adopt your principle, then the world will become a better place. So, if these two things are so different, why are they in each other's definitions? Because language fucking sucks. Language sucks so bad there's more than one. They don't even have the same rules. Words have genders in many languages. What's that? And yet, people speak these languages. It could be considered inefficient. You might think that it would be better for all of us to speak the same language. And in the case of efficiency, you would be right. As a rule, it would be better if all humans could communicate with one another. But what about the principle? On principle, the sheer variety of communication styles is vitally important to the cultural diversity of our planet. Because with different languages comes different ideas, and ideas are the lifeblood of a growing civilization. But what if they are bad ideas? And how do we know which ideas are bad or problematic? Which languages provide the most issues due to the nature of its communication style? Is gendered language partially to blame for the lack of trans acceptance in Mexico and Brazil? Whoa. This guy just brought up trans people, and I'm voting for Trump. Better not support such a libtard. Chill the fuck out. I'm sure if you keep watching, you'll find something that will stroke your Republican ego. Oh my god! This guy has alt-right views? Better not support such a Nazi! Chill the fuck out. You guys own basically all of the media right now, and everyone knows that the Daily Wire is incredibly cringe. Let some goddamn nuance in. Part 2. Language. Now, we're going to talk about another book that fed into my conceptualization of this video. It's that sci-fi book that you're tired of getting recommended because you're embarrassed you don't know how to pronounce the author's name. Cixin Liu's The Three-Body Problem. I would like to avoid saying spoilers ahead because I don't need to point out the obvious to such a smart little boy as you, but it appears I've already done so. Now, I've only read the first book. I left the second one at my old apartment that I used to share with my ex. We are recently broken up. That book is gone. But at the end of the first book, we get to see a very interesting communication between the alien Trisolarians and a particular faction of self-hating humans whose name is escaping me right now, so going forward I will refer to them as the anti-humanists. The anti-humanists think that human beings are inherently selfish and evil creatures, and upon learning of the existence of Trisolarians, their primary objective became to establish contact so that they could come to Earth and wipe out humanity. Fucked up shit, yeah? By the end of the first book, the anti-humanists have come up with a math-based language that any species that has conquered mathematics could feasibly understand, and they've launched the Rosetta Stone for this language out into space. The alien Trisolarians found this Rosetta Stone and immediately began charting a course towards Earth. The final communication between the anti-humanists and the alien Trisolarians... Okay, sorry, I'll stop. Went basically as follows. So, Trisolarians don't speak. Now I'm going to use the Socratic method to try and get you to read between the lines a little better. I'm sure such a smart and special little boy like you doesn't need any help reading between the lines, but you're going to have to let me help out our viewers in the back with the reading comprehension of the Three Blind Mice. We know that the Trisolarians do some bullshit like how computers communicate with each other. instant and constant communication with their own species by some radio mechanism in their brain or something. Again, I've only read the first book. The Trisolarians believe their form of communication as superior. Why? Probably because it's so fast. Kind of like how we were talking about in part 1 with the rules and language and that whole part and everything. It's just more efficient. If you read the book, you'll find out that the Trisolarians never really got the chance to even develop a culture. But if you want to find out what happens whenever 3 stars are all orbiting one another simultaneously, you'll have to read the book for yourself. It's crazy, wild physics shit. Go read the book. But there's something that language specifically enables us to do. The anti-humanists didn't think of it because they were too busy dick-riding the Trisolarians. But might a prouder member of the human race have something to say about their communication style? We have a mechanism for thought and a mechanism for communication. Trisolarians have one mechanism for both. So, what concept could the Trisolarians simply have never even considered due to the mere nature of their communication style? Deception. Humans can think about what they're going to say. Humans can be crafty with communication. It's infinitely more creative because it offers so much more choice in expression. We choose words to elicit a desired reaction, gauge what our words do to the other person, have thoughts about what our words are doing to the other person, and then continue to use more words in order to get the thing that we want. Language is cool, bro, but also inherently manipulative. Maybe this is something that the anti-humanists see as a flaw in their own species. Can the human race be trusted to act in the interest of the greater good when its very communication style is based in manipulation? It is my suspicion that this is going to be a plot point in one of the next 2 books. Or maybe the Trisolarians wipe out the entire human race because we are so incapable of achieving global cooperation. Leo is his own person after all. He had thoughts, did research, formed opinions, and he synthesized these things into a coherent story in order to convey his desired message. I'm excited to see what he has to say in the following books, regardless of whether or not I'm right. I hope my rant about my new favorite sci-fi novel has illustrated to you the complexity of language and its potential for misuse. We can't afford to be careless with language because it's how we understand, for better or for worse. But Mondo, you were talking about ideology like 5 minutes ago. Now we're talking about language and how we understand what we understand. This is way too heady. I'm going to go call Hassan a champagne socialist. All I'm really trying to convey with this part is that language is extremely complex. There are many, many more examples both in history and fiction of the far-reaching consequences of precise language. This was just the one that I thought was the coolest. Leo made lying and secrets seem like a superpower. And that's fucking awesome and scary at the same time. Also, Catch-22 is about harmful language. I hope you got that. And not, owie, you called me a TERF and now my feelings are hurt. But you've traumatized me through months of intentionally confusing me to the point of blind obedience for fear of continued confusion. But since I'm confused, I'm not aware of that. So, while my subconscious is confused, my active mind has to fill in the gaps. So I tell myself that I'd do anything for my country in order to rationalize why I'm continuing to contribute to the deaths of other people. Harmful language is dangerous, guys. Like, existentially dangerous. The scariest part is that most of us aren't even aware of it. I mean, I wasn't until I'd read Three Body. So many of us carelessly throwing words around, trying to turn the world into whatever we want it to be. And hey, it's election season. Maybe that's why you even clicked on the video. But we don't need to be having panic attacks about what we're going to say next for fear of what evil we might unintentionally unleash. There's another really cool thing that thinking about what we say enables us to do. Something that we can carry with us, always. Intention. The mental state representing the conviction to perform an action. So, if your intentions are good, then I don't think you really have anything to worry about. If you, make the decision that you don't want to harm anyone with your language, and you make the required corrections as you continue to grow, there are going to be growing pains, then you're doing the world such a kindness. If that's you, you're a smart and special little boy. Have conversations with your friends and family. Talk about what's good and what's bad. But be sure to be constantly asking yourselves and others why. Not only will you learn more, but I think you'll also have more fun talking. Since we can't do what the Trisolarians do, every person's a puzzle. And puzzles are fun. That doesn't mean start grilling your coworkers about their childhood trauma, but you see what I mean. We're social creatures. We need each other. So make the effort for your fellow human to be more intentional with your language. Part 3. Ideology. The definition of ideology, because it's taken me so long to get around to it, you've probably forgotten. A set of principles, especially one on which a political system, party, or organization is based. So, obviously, ideology is real. You could argue it's not because it's a concept that humans made up, but then we start talking about how humans created money and the widening gap between the middle and upper class and how capitalism is the bane of building communities, but that's not what this video is about, and I just started outgrowing my internet communist phase. For the sake of this video, and what I'm trying to convey to you, ideology is real. You're already on part 3, so if you feel betrayed, suck it up and get to the end of the video. Ludwig isn't streaming anyways, so what else are you going to do? The problem with any ideology is that it requires a lot of work to understand it. And as we've established, we understand things with language. And not only do we have people trying to explain what each ideology is, but we have this cool thing called propaganda that we use to manipulate people into thinking what we want them to think about the ideology that we don't like. How isn't that an irresponsible use of language? With a lot of things, one sentence can get you the minimum information you need insofar as understanding goes. But it's impossible to sum up authoritarianism or capitalism or communism or any of them in even one paragraph. And if you think that you can, you fell for the propaganda. And you're not a smart and special little boy. Because it's not just understanding what an ideology is, but why this ideology even exists in the first place. What social and or environmental factors led to an entire population adopting such an extreme and unique position? Whose idea was this? How'd they come up with it? What did they experience in their life that motivated them to make an ideology? Another important note to make about ideology is how little you or myself really have to do with it. I mean, unless there's a future president watching, but if that's the case, then our future president is a consumer of YouTube video essays and we're fucking doomed. How much choice do we really have in our ideology? In such a consumerist pandering world, is it possible to have any ideology other than one tinted with capitalism? If not, is that a good or a bad thing? Should we, the people, have more agency in our ideology? And now, for another piece of media to help illustrate my point. It's because of this movie that so many men think of ancient Rome at least once a week. That's right. It's Ridley Scott's masterpiece, Gladiator. I loved this movie when I was a kid. I loved it for different reasons as a teenager, and I love it for different reasons now. You guys notice that shit? Like, I watched The Road to El Dorado recently, and I just really appreciated how the writers and animators weren't treating their audience like little kids that needed to have everything censored. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't like maximum edgy or anything, but there was a makeout scene, some mild profanity. Elton John did the soundtrack. It just felt like they were taking me seriously even as a kid, and I didn't realize it until I got older. And that shell scene. Mommy. That plus Zorro kind of sealed the deal for me as a young one. And then Modern Family as a teen. Game fucking over, man. I stood no chance. But, anyways, stepping away from my appreciation of Latina queens, Maximus Decimus Meridius understood the complexity of ideology and the deep responsibility of leadership. So much so that he wanted nothing to do with it. If you haven't seen this incredible revenge story, then you're probably a girl. And that's okay. I'm just saying, I gave Queer Eye a chance, and I love that show. Maybe you could give our boring action movies a chance, and you might have something similar happen to you. As the plot progresses, some fuck shit happens to Maximus because Joaquin Phoenix is going through some sissy withdrawals. Maximus fights his way up the gladiator pits until he earns his chance at freedom in the Colosseum. Once he gets there, the audience gets a stark look at what those in power can do to the rest of us. Distract.
Games. 150 days of games.
He's cleverer than I thought.
Clever. The whole of Rome would be laughing at him. They weren't so afraid of his Praetorian.
Fear and wonder. Powerful combination.
You really think that people are going to be seduced by that?
I think he knows what Rome is. Rome is the mob. You conjure magic for them and they'll be distracted. We take away their freedom and still they'll roar. The beating heart of Rome is not the marble of the Senate. It's the sand of the Colosseum. You'll bring them death. And they will love him for it.
The Senate uses the Colosseum as a way of keeping the people entertained, because an entertained population is a distracted population. As long as you're pumped about that fight between the tiger and that guy on the red team, you don't care about such boring things as policy and ideology. There are other, more important people worrying about that. Do we have a Colosseum? I know we don't have people, like, killing each other in melee combat, but is there something that those in power use today to distract us? Or has the internet become so self-consuming that we're doing it to ourselves? Yeah, our Colosseum is the internet. More specifically, the bullshit culture war that all of us seem to think is the most important thing ever. The internet is just the tool we use to keep the combat non-violent. Pointless, non-violent combat. So, as far as ideology goes, we the people have almost nothing to do with it. I mean, we elect people to do it for us, but we're not discussing ideology with each other in any actionable capacity. They are. And their lives are so vastly different from the common person. I mean, shit. American congressmen get to decide their own salaries. So it only makes sense that their ideological conversations look vastly different than the ones that we could be having with each other. Their language is different. The way I see it, politicians are doomed to become out of touch if their only job ever is politician. Term limits, people. Kind of sad that people are so power hungry that we have to impose limits on them. Imagine a world where old white dudes go, you know what? My time has passed. I'm going to go spoil my grandkids till I die. And then they just pass the torch because it's the right thing to do. I mean, fuck. Marijuana still isn't federally legal because those old fucks lived through the Reagan era and still think that going to Vietnam was a good idea. Sorry. I'm not trying to get political, but give me a break. I'm literally talking about ideology. And instead of turning your nose up at something that you disagree with, make the effort to understand why someone might believe that. Yeah, you too, white girls. Are you guys cringing at yourselves for posting black squares yet? Yeah, I'm poking fun at you guys, but it's because 99% of you are taking yourselves way too seriously in terms of your worldview. The only reason I really think this is because I was, am, always will be that way. And I feel like this has got to be one of those things that's universal. Yeah, we're all different, but we're all people, so we're all so similar at the same time. What would an ideology actually created by regular people look like? By us talking to each other to find some common thread, because there are threads. Okay. I'm seriously trying to avoid getting too political, so I'll let you guys follow those logical threads down your respective party lines. You get it, though. Politicians aren't the people. We are the people. So why is it that they get to decide how our lives should be? Why is ideology just for them? Wish I had an answer. I certainly don't have my own thoughts and feelings on the subject, so as to remain as politically ambiguous as possible. If you've got an answer, or you think you have an answer, throw it down in the comments, please. I'm definitely not baiting for engagement. What are your thoughts? Do you feel powerless to affect change? Is this first video a big pile of shit? Let me know, please. Not every video is going to be as charged as this one. This was just kind of what I felt like researching and writing. Next video will likely be about the importance of nuance being applied almost everywhere, and I'll be using the Star Wars prequels as the relevant piece of media. If you'd like to see that, subscribe, and I'll call you a big boy on stream. Twitch.tv/AkimBrew. Thank you for watching. Bye. We thank you so much for getting to the end of the video. It's so nice of you. Thank you so much. I can't believe you sat through it all. Bye.